Time to do what?
No.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. With me, as always, my guy, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, Martin Soares. How we feeling tonight, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Good to be back here we're on a different night tonight. This is usually a Tuesday night thing for anyone who's a little thrown off. Anyone who's watching live who is right here, right on time, right this second, definitely good to have you and to see you. Be sure to comment as we go through our conversation tonight. If you're watching on the playback, leave a comment on this episode as well. Any thoughts that you have. We just had a record-breaking, all-time great, historic WNBA finals.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of that. We got a few things to unpack here tonight, Marcus. The end of an historic WNBA season. Got some things to say about that. I know you do as well. So, what are we getting into tonight, man?
As you mentioned, man, historic 2024 WNBA season capped off on Sunday with only fitting the most watched WNBA finals game ever and the most WNBA watched finals series ever, most attended series ever. A great cap off. So we're going to talk a bit about Jonquel Jones. We're going to talk a bit about Sabrina Ionescu. We're going to talk a bit about Breanna Stewart and, of course, Napheesa Collier. And then twice now this season, Martin and I have released our top 10 players. And with the season over, with a full body of work, a full 40 games, it's time for us now to finally, for the last time in the 2024 year, revisit that list. And I am fully prepared for Martin Soares to have to threaten to take my basketball card away by the end of the show. I'm fully prepared for that. The last time we did this, I ruffled some feathers. I fully intend on doing that again tonight. So if you want to see me ruffle some feathers, stay tuned for the end of the show because some feathers will be ruffled.
Top 10 is gonna get spicy, man. I had a hard time when I got to around 5. I had to
really
dig deep. Yeah, man. My top 4 were pretty locked for me when top 2, the top 3. Sorry, top 3 are
the top 3 are straightforward.
We are on 2 and 3, but once I got to about 5, man, I had to dig deep a little bit. So.
I do just want to acknowledge real quick before we hop into the show 2 things. First of all, my queen, the queen, A'ja Wilson, getting her jersey retired down there in South Carolina on 2/2, rightfully so. My one gripe with this is that this wasn't done in 2022. Then it could have been retired on February 2nd, 2022. Just 2s across the board. That would have been great. But on top of that, Napheesa Collier confirmed announced, I guess, in her exit interview for the season that the players that are going to be in the Unrivaled League report to Miami January 2nd. So we've got that to look forward to. Remember, the Unrivaled League tips off January 17th of next year. And of course, they signed that massive deal with TNT to be able to stream games or, to air the games, all that stuff, which is huge. And on that wave of money, WNBA players, they've opted out of the CBA. So after a historic season, it's time. It's time to cut that check, Kathy. I don't know where you're at.
But run it up, Kathy. It's time to run it up. We go into the negotiating table. Yeah. We gotta rehash some things now, baby.
Gotta rehash some things. And have no fear, there will be a season next season. But if the CBA is not agreed upon by the end of the 2025 season, the 2026 season could be in jeopardy. There's a lot to talk about. There's not a lot of time to get into it. So we're going to hit this intro and we're going to have ourselves a good old time here tonight.
Protect our queens.
No matter what it takes, we must protect our queen.
I mean, I just love playing the game. It's fun.
I'm reacting on what the defender does.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill. So I've sort of prided myself on that.
I know what I'm doing. Like, people can't tell me I'm not doing the right, I've been taught the right way.
Good to be here, Marcus. I do want to say something real quick before we get into some things here tonight on the Protect Our Queens podcast. Just a quick follow-up to the video I put up on our Instagram page. I hate to gloat. I hate to boast. I hate to bask in the brilliance of our words right here on this show.
Oh yeah.
And that's not what I'm doing. I'm really just kind of I'm really just stating the facts that when it came to all the dialogue and discourse about women's basketball, the WNBA, the level of talent, Caitlin Clark, ratings, numbers, revenue, whatever, all the discourse that started happening as the popularity and the interest was increasing, especially as we were transitioning from, the last couple of years of like historic women's college basketball popularity and how that was going to translate to the WNBA. We've spent a good amount of time on this show kind of talking about that and anticipating that. And just to again reiterate what I've already said, put it in a video on our Instagram page. I hate to put it this way, but I don't hate it. I'm glad to be able to declare and decree that we were right. We were right all this time. For anyone watching, just a very quick summary of what we were saying all this time was that all you have to do is look at the numbers of the last few years, the numbers, the ratings, the attendance, playoffs, WNBA finals. The finals were setting ratings and attendance records for the last few years. Every year, more 200,000, up to 400,000, up to 700,000. It was going up by hundreds of thousands every year in terms of viewership. So all we said when all the hoopla was going on around Caitlin and nobody watches this and it's not a high level league, it's not a high level product. All we kept trying to tell people was like, look, you're wrong. There's extremely high level talent here already. And all we ever tried to tell people and explain to them was it's a combination of the popularity, the rise and growth that was already happening. Clearly, all you have to do is look at the numbers. There was already a wave and growth, a growing interest in popularity in women's basketball in the WNBA. It was happening already. It was always about the combination of that, what was already happening with the massive tidal wave that came with Caitlin and Angel and all the popularity that they brought. And we never disputed who could. That they were bringing levels of attention that has never been seen before. That's not really what we were trying to argue. Right. What we ended up arguing with stupid, idiotic people who don't love or appreciate or know basketball about was trying to explain to them that they're not injecting life into a lifeless league. Yeah. They are bringing more attention than we've ever seen to a league that has been growing in attention already over the last few years. And that's why you saw what you saw. If you watched any of this WNBA season, if you watched any of the WNBA finals, high level, edge of your seat basketball, which by the way, we told you the finals were going to be like that too, right here on this show. We told you that every game was going to be a bloodbath and was going to be war. Yeah. You saw it. And we didn't need Caitlin Clark just to have a high level, exciting WNBA finals. Would the numbers have been doubled if Caitlin was in the finals? Probably, but they would have been higher if we had Liberty Aces again. Think about that, right?
It would have been higher for sure.
Liberty Aces, as high as it was, millions of people every game. It would have been even higher if it was Liberty Aces. So the conclusion, the point is, we didn't need Caitlin Clark just to get excited about the product of basketball and to be shown an exciting basketball product. Yeah. She's great. She's excellent. She brought more numbers and viewership and interest than ever before. We get that, and that's great. Now, like I've said from the beginning, fans had a chance to be educated all summer up until this week. They had a chance to educate themselves to be like, wow, Nafisa Collier, who's that? Arike Agumbawale, who's that? Kelsey Plum, who's that? Alicia Gray, who's that? Jonquel Jones, who's that? There's a lot of good players in this league. And if you love basketball, like many people I affiliate with do, then all you have to say and admit to is like, yo, the W is lit. Like you can love Caitlin. You can admit that you're watching because of Caitlin. But now it's time to admit that you were naive, you were foolish, and you didn't know what you were talking about all this time for all these idiot WNBA haters who had good. We were right. Just had
Hey,
to wanted
and
to.
if you don't believe us, let's go to one of the realest places on the internet. Let's go to Twitter. First of all, shout out to New York, by the way, because the road to the championship for New York was not a easy one. They had to beat the MVP in Asia Wilson. They had to beat the Defensive Player of the Year, Nafisa Collier, the Coach of the Year in Cheryl Reeves, Sixth Player of the Year, Tiffany Hayes, and of course, Executive of the Year was also Cheryl Reeves. So they definitely deserved it.
From the two teams. Those are all from the same two teams.
This tweet got me. New York wins the championship, and someone goes, so many babies are going to be adopted tonight. I thought that was funny. Jonquel Jones, who we'll get into in a second. Shout out our guy, Nakias Duncan, doing great things in the space. Jonquel Jones is an all-star. She's the most improved player. She's the Sixth Player of the Year. She's an MVP, a Finals MVP, and now she's a champion. What a resume. If I'm not mistaken, I think she might be the only player in WNBA history
I would, bro. I mean,
have had this resume.
Who else has been an MVP and a Sixth Player of the Year?
Yeah,
and
that growth is nuts. So shout out JJ.
And people don't do that.
On that same wave, resumes, we talk about Maya Moore being the ultimate winner. Breonna Stewart in that conversation. 4 championships, all 4 years in college. Her now 3rd WNBA championship. She secured her 3rd Olympic gold medal this summer as well. 3 World Cups, 2 EuroLeague championships as well. Breonna Stewart, one of the greatest winners this league has ever seen.
I saw a thread that was like 4 times longer than this, by the way. I meant
really?
You. I saw my cousin retweeted a thread earlier that I saw. Someone went all in on Stewie's. I think they went back to high school or something because
Stewie's resume is nuts.
Her resume is stacked. It's super.
It's crazy.
Now I loved this one because I just felt like they were running the Birkin bag reference too far into the ground. I'm like, okay, I get it. The bag, like being in your bag, I get it. But the Birkin thing, I'm like, Holly, just all right. You don't need to call up the Birkin every time someone does a good move. So I love right next to the Target bag. Like, come on.
Which one do you think was funnier, this one or them leaving the Timbs in the middle of Vegas's floor at the end of that series? Which one got you more? This one was funny, but I think the Timbs were nuts.
I mean, that's New York. The Timbs was on point. That was fire.
And it was a shot because I think in game 1 or game 2, the Aces pulled up. They were all wearing Timbs. They were all wearing Timbs to the game.
The Timbs might get it.
Man, that was good. I said this to Martin. This is whenever I see this future picture, bro, it's always fun to say. Sabrina Ionescu going 1 for 19 and winning a championship made me realize I should shoot another shot for you.
That's just like
it's hilarious, bro. I think the funnier thing about this too is that it's a reply. It's a quote in the original tweet. Lesbians do not text your ex just because.
That's crazy, bro.
I love that, man. I love it.
Shoot your shot.
I don't think I've ever seen a bad comment on this or a bad caption on this.
Future meme.
The future meme is undefeated, bro.
You can't miss.
It's undefeated, man. This one I also sent to Martin, which I thought was funny. Sabrina in game 5, she had 5 points. She was 1 of 20 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3. She's WNBA champion, and they've got a picture of Kendrick Perkins.
Big Perk.
Shout out Perk and the 2018 champion Cavs, man. Shout out Perk.
Carry on.
In defense of Sabrina, a lot of people were trying to figure out why Sabrina was so emotional. You got to think about her road to a championship was not easy. In 2020, Oregon could have won a national championship, and they didn't have the opportunity to do so because there was not a national championship game because of COVID. She was hurt her rookie year. I believe either that rookie year or the year after. They also were 2-20. Remember, another thing about the Liberty, a couple years ago, the Liberty were playing in front of like an abandoned warehouse or something, in front of like 1,000 people or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to go from that to, I tell Martin all the time, like, and anyone really, if you want to know about how much growth, Martin talked about how the WNBA was growing before this season. Look no further than the New York Liberty's just average game attendance season to season over the last 5 years. So to go from not having a chance to win a championship in college to being injured her rookie year to losing in the finals last season, to show up, have the season she had this season, hit a game winner, an all-time shot at the end of game 3, win a championship, huge for Sabrina Ionescu this season. Yeah. And here we go again. I thought this one was funny as well. You go 119 in the biggest game of your life and you don't get punished. I don't care. That don't sit right with me. Now just imagine if Kate, no, let me stop. Now, in all respect to the original tweet, 100% accurate. If Caitlin goes 1-19 in the biggest game of her career, she gets shredded.
Yeah.
But Sabrina won a championship. It doesn't matter what she did. She won over 19. She won a championship. That's all that matters. But Naja Laney, another player on this Liberty squad who has been through the mud. Shout out to this queen right here. She was with the team at the beginning of the rebuild, stayed loyal to the team through the trenches, and now she's the WNBA champ. That game 2 performance won't be forgotten. It will not be forgotten. That game 2 performance, I think, was the difference in this series, man, because somebody needed to step up in that game. And shout out for you. Shout out for Jersey, Rutgers alum out here winning the championship.
You already know.
Championship back to Jersey.
Coach was at every game, I think, man. I saw her
Really?
at Game 4 in Minnesota. I spotted her on a timeout on a commercial. I had to pause it, like, Coach, what you doing out there? And then she was in New York for Game 5. Saw her hugging Naj after the game. No, you're right, man. That Game 2 performance, that was huge. And, you know, she may not have done too much after that, but that's the beauty of a championship series and a championship team. It could be one game. It could be one possession. It could be different moments. It was a little unfortunate that they didn't go back to Naj late in Game 5. I couldn't really blame Sandy Brondello. I thought Kayla Thornton was giving a little bit better minutes than her in that particular game. Yeah. But what Naj did in Game 2, that's part of the championship story. They needed that. Without what she did in Game 2, they could have gone down 2-0.
Yeah, I think they would have gone down 2-0 with the way that, and Stewie had, I told you, like a bounce back game, but they were struggling, and that Phoebish wasn't playing as well as she was playing Game 1. That was a tough one for them. They definitely needed that.
This is the one right here.
If I send this to you, it means I did nothing wrong. Yeah, 100%. That's not a foul. I don't know what we're looking at there.
It was not a foul, and she did travel before.
And she did travel. She didn't travel. So, yeah, there you go. There's that. Again, going back to the numbers, the 2024 WNBA Finals set historic records in both attendance and viewership. Not only was this the most attended finals by aggregate, so total through all 5 games, and most attended finals by per game average, most watched finals by per game average, and obviously most watched finals all together. So again, everyone watches women's sports. When you sit down and you invest time, energy, and effort into women's sports, people will come in groves to see it, as we see here. This is WNBA basketball, man. This is, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. They say nobody watching. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in there, Martin. I don't know, man. If I'm not mistaken, too, the Liberty throughout the course of this postseason broke and rebroke their own attendance record throughout the course of this postseason. They have Barclays records, bro. Like, these aren't just Liberty specific. Like, these are like, some of these attendance records are Barclays attendance records for events, and it's women's basketball doing that, bro. So again, hey, as we say all the time, first of all, if you don't like women's basketball, this isn't the place for you. That's first and foremost. But more importantly than that, don't tell me no one watches women's basketball, because lots of people watch women's basketball.
And yeah, they're definitely watching now. It's just, it's just crazy to have witnessed all this history. And again, just all the evidence is there of what I've tried to tell people. We were right. And the evidence, that WNBA finals, the whole season, but especially the finals, is just
absolutely
evidence. It's just all the evidence is there. Multiple overtime games in the finals for the first time. You got Spike Lee at the games. Again, the excitement around this season and the WNBA was absolutely amplified by Caitlin Clark's presence, by Angel Reese's presence, right? But people seem to have this thought that the league wanted New York to win. Kathy had a dress on with New York design on it and stuff. And, I get the speculation, the questionable call at the end. Cheryl Reeve is out here talking about they stole it from us.
Unloaded the clip.
I mean, listen, man, I don't know how that negates, 6 turnovers by the Lynx in overtime and no made field goals. I can't negate Courtney Williams just being gassed. By the way, there's a lot of things you can point to. The scheduling, right? We're going to get 7 games next year instead of 5. They'll have to get ready for that. But you think about the fact that they're going between New York and Minnesota. They played Friday night in Game 4. Game 5 was Sunday night in New York. Really consider those things.
Right on a jet. And
it was all evident to me. Both teams were gassed. There was a reason why that last game was so ugly. Everyone was tired. Courtney Williams was gassed in Game 4.
Yeah.
she was gone. I mean,
Yeah.
Natisha Heidemann got more minutes in Game 5. I think just because Courtney Williams wasn't playing that well, but I think it's because she was so tired.
Yeah.
She was out of it. So there's so many factors that go into it. Coaches, people forget coaches are competitors too. So when you lose and when you're that close, you can be emotional in the moment. Despite how bad they played, they still could have won. So as a coach, I'm sure you can, it can be easy to kind of point at certain possessions that really stood out. But, even if the Lynx get the ball back, they call the travel on Stewie, even if they don't call the foul on the line, there's still no guarantee you win the game. It was still up in the air that close. So situations like that, I'm not just going to say, I have a hard time blaming on officials when there's so many things in the game that can determine the outcome. But, the refs do have to do better, but I think so many factors played into what we saw towards the end of that finals.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into it, man. We're going to start by talking about finals MVP, Jonquel Jones. But first, let's talk back to a clip of you just last week talking about Jonquel Jones.
They don't have a matchup for her physically with her size and her strength. Jonquel Jones is a coordinated stretch big. Alana Smith, if someone has switched off on her, like whoever it is, they can't stop her from doing what she wants to do. They just don't have an individual presence that can match what she does inside. Her passing and her playmaking also can't get overlooked too, because a lot of times that's what initiates a great shot or the next pass or another good drive.
I feel like I could have pulled, and I thought about doing this, but I didn't want to overdo it. I could have pulled clips of me talking about the Liberty last year, and I could have just looked like I was a year too early on it. I feel like all the strong points I made about how good the Liberty were last year. Of course, they were in the finals, but I feel like it all came to fruition this year.
Absolutely. And for Jonquel Jones, this is her third consecutive finals appearance. As you and I talked about offline, she was in the finals in 2021 when she was still in Connecticut against the Aces. That was a loss. Obviously, last season, first year in New York, a loss to the Aces again. So for Jonquel Jones, her third consecutive WNBA finals, not just to win the championship, but to be the best player on the team from the beginning of Game 1 to the end of Game 5, accumulating in a finals MVP, adding on to that resume, further proving, by the way, that the DMV area, certified hoopers, bro.
Oh, okay.
Jonquel Jones went to high school in PG. Don't forget it. All right.
Okay.
So just wanted to take a second right there and beat the DMV drum real quick. There's a lot of talent out here.
You better rep it, man.
When it comes to hooping, but we want to hear from you guys. Absolutely, please. Feel free, hop in the comments. But Martin, what is it about Jonquel Jones that makes her different? Like, what's different about Jonquel Jones? Whether it's this season, whether it's compared to other people, like what is it about Jonquel that just stands out to you?
So was she really in the finals 3 straight years? Was it 2021? I thought she wasn't in the finals in 2019. That wasn't the Connecticut Mystics finals in 2019. She's
probably there too as well. But they weren't in the finals in 2020. So
right. I'm talking about 2019 though.
I think she was in the finals in 2019 as well.
So she's been in the finals 4 times. I didn't realize she was in the finals 3 straight years.
Yeah. For the last 5. Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
She's
I think that what makes Jonquel different, as I said in the clip, she's a true stretch big, but she does still score inside. She's still fully aware of how unguardable she is with her size inside. She doesn't really live inside. She really kind of splits time on the perimeter and inside because, again, she can stretch the floor and hit the 3. And that's what makes her different because I think the WNBA has been like right now, and we talk about this age of the unicorn and versatility, dual forwards, players like Nafisa and Alyssa Thomas and Asia, these like very versatile kind of forwards. And the W has always had strong bigs. But Jonquel, I think, just really represents, more versatility at the center position. where it's not a traditional center like a Brittany Griner, who has shown she can step out and shoot a little bit more, but she hasn't extended to the 3-point line consistently yet, like a Jonquel. You think of Sylvia Fowles and Rebecca Brunson and, some of the great bigs in the league. I think Jonquel just brings like that shot making and versatility to the forefront. And offensively, like I said, I when I talked a lot about when the Liberty brought this group together last year, I just thought it was the perfect fit. What Jonquel does with her versatility and size as a center, combining that with Stewie's versatility as a forward, and adding that to what they already had with Sabrina, obviously bringing Sloot in. But the combination of Jonquel and Stewie was always just too powerful of a dynamic, too much size and versatility to not, eventually win a championship. So I just think Jonquel, I don't know if we're going to start calling her like the best center in the league. She may have earned that. She may be that. I just think she's so untraditional as a stretch big that that's what makes her different. That's what makes her unique. And listen, and again, I kept telling you, Alana Smith, she's somewhere seeing a great chiropractor this week. She's at the spa, at the sauna, getting that back treatment because Jonquel Jones was beating her down throughout that series. And again, it's not even like Jonquel was inside all the time, but between her offensive rebounds, even driving the ball like off the bounce sometimes from the 3-point line, just wearing her out. And then again, you got to recover to her. You got to close out to her in the 3-point line. So the Alana Smith-Jonquel matchup was going to be big. I talked about that for this series, but with that, it's the combination of size and skill set. Think Jokic, think Cat, the NBA New York team, they're hoping Cat can be Jonquel for the Knicks. That's what they need him to be. They're very similar in that sense. But that combination of size, her specific size and her specific versatility, that's what makes her different. And I don't think there's another player like her right now in the W as far as like a center who's a true stretch big.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, you think about, we asked this question on the Instagram story, and we got a couple of interesting responses. The two that stood out to me, Wendy Johnson, shout out to Wendy. She said that when she thinks about Jonquel Jones, she thinks about the grit, but she's a silent killer, which I, agree with. And then Women's Hoops Masterclass said her ability to hold her deep seals in the paint is a very underrated skill, and that's what makes her different. When I think, and you've mentioned obviously Kat, you've mentioned Jokic. What I was trying to think for me, like if I think of Jonquel Jones as an NBA comp, like who am I thinking of? And I like the Kat comparison, but if I'm being honest, my personal bias, I'm not really like a big Kat fan.
Okay.
But I do think the one difference though there between the two of them is, I think Jonquel is a little bit more willing to kind of play down low than Kat is. Not that Kat can't or that he won't, but I think she's more willing. So I would kind of more lean closer to like a Joel Embiid type of thing, because we have these same conversations about Joel Embiid, right? Like there are not many big men in the history of the NBA that have the skill set that Joel Embiid has, the ability to shoot the ball from deep, the ability to affect the game in the mid-range, obviously the ability to, be dominant in the paint, but also drive and shoot, fadeaways, all that stuff. Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, really good rebounder. I don't know if I wouldn't say he's like the best rebounder in the league, but he's not a bad rebounder, reliable free throw shooter as well. Like when I think about Jonquel Jones, I think about all those things. On top of that too, Jonquel Jones, for what it's worth, and I don't know if this is something that's talked about enough. I know you talked about it at least maybe once or twice offline. I don't know if we ever talked about it on the show, but really great passer out of the post as well. Just, whether it's the 2-man game, whether it's just her vision out of the post as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she's playing with players like Phoebish and players like Ionescu, players like Stewie, Betnijah Hamilton, who can, hit shots from deep or, when they're open. So when I think about Jonquel Jones, I think about her impact on the game for the Liberty. I think a lot about Embiid's impact on the game when he's healthy, obviously in Philly. I think that would be the comparison. For a long time, I know a lot of people compared it to KD. I think KD even compared her to himself at one point in time, but the impact down low in the paint for me is why I tend to shy away from the KD comparison. When I think of a player in the WNBA that's like KD,
she's not a KD, anyone you compare to KD has to show guard like tendency.
I would
she does a little bit, but it's
Right.
not elusive enough to
right.
make
I would say Stewie is closer to a KD type of player than Jonquel Jones is, right? For the reason you just mentioned, like the ability, right? Jonquel can do it, but she's not doing that frequently. You're not seeing Jonquel bring the ball up the floor at all, if ever. You know what I mean? But like again, like the ability to play down low, be physically imposing down low, too much hold. Like to your point in the clip, a lot of teams in the league don't have an answer for her. Even you think about some of the most physical team in the league, Connecticut. Like Connecticut struggled with Jonquel Jones even last season in that playoff matchup. It was a very tough playoff matchup for Stewie. But if you look back and look at what Jonquel was doing, Jonquel was still having, a really good series. She was playing like how we expect her to play, double machine, a consistent 20 and 10, 20 and 12 threat, things of that nature. So Jonquel Jones' ability to impact the game as a big consistently as a 5. We don't see a lot of dominant 5s in the WNBA today. I think some are coming, right? I think we have a couple that are on the way. I think if Ezzy Magbagor, for example, becomes a little bit more polished offensively, I think she can be a dominant, not a dominant 5, but she can be one of those formidable 5s in the league, a couple others. But like she right now, to your point, I would say she is the best center in the league. She has all of the things that you would need, and she can dominate the floor on both sides of the ball, which is what it takes.
Yeah, and like it really became clear, like that game 5 was so ugly, it was so ugly. It was rugged. It was slow paced for the most part. And that's why Jonquel led them in scoring with 17. It's why she looked the best. It's why when it was time to get a bucket, they just went inside to her because, of course, Sabrina wasn't playing well, and neither was Stewie. When the two of them aren't playing well, I mean, it looks bad. They really struggle, but they still have Jonquel Jones. Yeah. And that's where she was able to bail them out. But why she deserved Finals MVP was because she was playing that well and that consistent every game. I didn't look it up and have it in front of me. I don't know how many games out of the 5 she had a double-double, but I think she scored in double figures every game.
She scored in double figures every game. She didn't have a double-double every game because I think she was like a rebound or 2 short in game 4 of a double-double, but she was pretty close. I want to say she had a double-double in at least 3, but to your point, consistency. Like she was the best player on the floor in game 1. I told you that Stewie had a bounce back game. It wasn't a great game 2, but compared to what she did 2 nights before in game 1, you consider that a bounce back game, but Jonquel was still more of the same. Jonquel's impact on this series was felt in game 1, despite the loss, and in game 5 when they really needed her because of the ruggedness of the game, but she was still consistent throughout. I was shocked, especially with the injury to Alana Smith. I was shocked that she wasn't getting a touch every possession down the floor. I thought that we should just give it to Jonquel. They couldn't stop her. They couldn't stop her at all. Like I think she could have. I think if she got more touches, she would have had a much more dominant series against Minnesota if they would have gotten her the ball down there a lot more.
Yeah, probably. And again, she showed up in so many moments. A few possessions before the Sabrina shot in game 3, Jonquel hit the backbreaker 3 that I don't remember what the time and score was, but it was in the last few minutes. I know that time, but score wise, she either tied it up or she put him up by 2, but she hit the 3. I think even Cheryl Reeves said after that game 3, like the Jonquel 3 really stuck out to her. That felt like a backbreaker and a momentum shift. And Jonquel was showing up in all kinds of different moments, hitting 3s, scoring inside, those early seals, and the offensive rebounding, which was a huge story in the first, couple games. They were really killing them in there. But yeah, that's that's something how we talk about, like, when we look at teams that come back and try to, the whole copycat league thing. And even if it's not copycat, it's just teams are, making adjustments based on who the champion is. And you have to be able to match up with what the champion has. Yeah, you're going to need, I think the emphasis on size, skill set, and versatility is going to go up even more when you have players like Jonquel out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's toss it back to a call out. You called out a specific player at the beginning of the season. Let's take it back to a clip for that, and let's react to that as well.
Sabrina Ionescu, this is a big season for her. Like, this is 100%. A big season for you, sis. People are challenging who, forget about the face of the league stuff and all that, but just challenging if you're even an elite player. in the league right now. That was the biggest limitation to them not being able to compete with the Las Vegas Aces. It was the guard play. And I mean, not we know that not any team has really the depth of talent of guard play that the Las Vegas Aces have. But you need at least one elite guard to be playing elite basketball to be able to compete with the Aces. And Sabrina was just not that. You need to show people who you are this year, more than just like knocking down threes and showing you can hit 5, 6 3. More than that, like you need to show what kind of like overall player and competitor you are right now.
Strong words, Martin Sori. Strong words for Sabrina Ionescu. You called her out, so we're gonna take it back to grade school for a second. If you had to grade Sabrina Ionescu's 2024 A through F, what are you giving her?
Oh, she gets an A. She gets an A for sure. Because she did the things that that I questioned her about, and that most people questioned her about. And I got some numbers here to really show it. But I was gonna say, you know, I was really disturbed by some of her playoff performances. Game 3 against Vegas, a couple of games there, even Game 3 where she came up big at the end, which, you know, even as I said at the end of that clip, like I think even like the Game 3, and I said this about the Liberty to you after the first couple games, I think at that show, where it's just like they just kept responding. That's what, you know. We both picked the Lynx to win in 5. I was rooting for the Liberty, honestly. I was rooting for the Liberty, and I did want them to win. And I felt like that I said it was up in the air. I wouldn't be surprised if either team won. But the Liberty, as the series went on, the way they lost Game 1, came back and won Game 2. That's why I said to you in our show after Game 2, I'm like, what worries me about Minnesota is that New York keeps coming, but they keep responding when they get these like seemingly devastating losses. They keep coming back. And specifically, Stewie and Sabrina kept coming back and responding, because the way Sabrina played in that Game 4 against Vegas after she stunk it up in Game 3, she just came right back. So that's part of her competitiveness that I think she really did show what she's made of this season. But you know, I give her an A because overall this season she made the improvements that I think she really needed to make, specifically shooting twos, because one of the things I said in that clip is she needs to show she's not just a 3-point shooter. I mean, she plays the point guard position. No one's going to call her the best passer in the league or the best point guard in the league. She did a little bit better with playmaking this year, but really just some of the things as like a guard being more comfortable with her dribble, turning corners more, even just being able to get by somebody, honestly, because that's where she was really lacking last year. And she did, even from the beginning of the season, if you watch the Liberty and watch Sabrina, she looked totally different. She had more of a pop. She looked a little quicker, way more confident, extending her dribble after 3 or 4. Now, again, I saw her revert a little bit more than I would have liked in the playoffs and the finals, picking up her dribble, not being able to get by people, questioning her in-between game where she put up some floaters that were just terrible. Where she just didn't really know what to do in that in-between space. But nevertheless, she got way better. And the numbers prove it in terms of playing underneath the 3-point line, getting more into her 2-point game. So she had a career high this season on how many 2-pointers she shot and how many 2-pointers she made. She made 132 2-pointers this season, career high. She shot 285. That's by far a career high for her as far as just 2-pointers. For reference, she made 132 twos this season. Mm-hmm. Last year, she made 67.
So double, basically.
Going back to even what you alluded to earlier, because this really is a thing about Sabrina's health, where she got hurt 3 games into her rookie year, number 1 overall pick in 2020. Messed up her ankle. Apparently, it was still messed up in 2021. She was never really back to herself. 2022, you can tell that she was back to herself, because in 2022, she made 128 twos. Remember, this year was 132, career high. But 2 years ago, she made 128 and shot 264. So she kind of took a step back last year. I don't know what that may have had to do with, but it was clearly a step back and showing some of her limitations. going to the playoffs. This year in the playoffs, she made 38 twos out of 89 attempts. Last year in the playoffs, she only made 16. And that last year, she made 16 twos in 10 games. This year, she played 11 games, one more game. She made 22 more two-pointers. So just that alone shows you that she had more confidence and more of an emphasis on showing that she's not just a three-point shooter. And, mainly for that, I'm giving her an A this season because that was, the biggest improvements I wanted to see from her, I saw. And if she didn't make those improvements, the Liberty don't win the title. Again, it didn't seem she hasn't made a full transformation yet because she reverted back a little bit, several games in the playoffs. But that makes me look forward to seeing how much more she can improve next season with some of those things. So I'm giving her season an A.
I'm gonna give her a B. The reason I'm gonna give her a B is for the reason that Women's Hoop Masterclass put on the story when we asked what she proved. She didn't prove anything, specifically in the finals, because she was repulsive. She was absolutely repulsive in the finals. Overall, from a shooting standpoint, she was not great in the finals. The thing for me that stuck out is there was a point in time this WNBA season before A'ja Wilson kind of just took off and pulled away from everyone else, where you could have sat down and said Sabrina Ionescu was the MVP of the league for all the reasons that you just mentioned, for the improvement to the 2-point shooting, for the improvements with the decision making and the dribbling and the passing. Right, we spent some time on the show a couple months ago ranting and raving and lamenting about how great her passing had gotten, whether it's because Courtney Vandersloot hadn't been there and taken a step back, or whatever the reason was. She got better at passing the basketball. Her assist numbers, career high this year, all that stuff. All that being said, though, all of it just went away in the finals. All of it went away. So when I look at Sabrina, yes, Sabrina is a champion. Her story is phenomenal, taking nothing away from her. But to your point, I know she was gassed, as was everyone. But if it were just game 5 where she was shooting that poorly, I would back up a bit. But she did not have a great game 1. She had an okay game 2. She had an okay game. She had an okay game 3.
After the first quarter of game 1, she lit them up in the first quarter. She
did. And then I don't know what happened. She set the record for most misses in a single game. She had 18 of them. So I don't know what happened after the first quarter. Hey, I'm gonna be honest. In the first quarter, I thought this would be a runaway series for the Liberty. I was actually nervous because I said before the series that none of these games would be decided by more than 10 points. And looked at how she looked at the beginning of game 1 in the first quarter, but that all just kind of went away. Sabrina, at one point in time in this series, and I texted you this, had me thinking she was the best point guard in the league. With the growth that she made this season, with the way that she looked in the postseason, the bounce back, especially in game 4 of the series against Vegas to close them out on the road and not have to come back to Brooklyn, combined with how she looked in moments in games 1 and 2, I thought Sabrina was the best point guard, or at least comfortably put herself in a position where we can need to have a serious conversation about whether or not Chelsea Gray, and I love Chelsea Gray, I love Chelsea Gray, was still the best point guard in the league. I thought that's what we were seeing from Sabrina, the willingness to delegate to Stewie and to Jonquel, to a lesser degree Phoebish and Bent-Nigel Laney, the ability to play off of them a lot better than how she did last year. I think last year that dip, I would say, had a lot to do with the fact that these are the 2 best players she's ever been on the floor with, and trying to figure that out, I think, is probably what led to all of that. And she was able to grow in that, obviously. So I'm going to give her a B. Not a terrible season at all by any stretch of the imagination, but this final series is what left a bad taste in my mouth, because we were, I think, on a steady up and up. Regular season was great. The lead into the finals was really good. A bounce back against Vegas, and we come out against Minnesota. Minnesota, for sure, I think, a much better defensive team. I know much better defensive team than Vegas was this season, so that might play a part in it. But to your point, she reverted a little bit in a lot of moments. But she had she hit the greatest shot of her career to win game 3. A shot that I'm gonna tell you, when she put it up, I don't know if it's because of how far back she was. I don't know if it's because the clock was running down. It didn't look like her natural shooting form, and I thought it was going to be short. I did. I didn't think she was going to hit that shot, but she hits that shot. She wins the game. That's a big shot for her to win that game. A big moment in WNBA history. That's a shot that's going to live for eternity. We're going to see that 10, 15, 20 years from now when we're looking back on 2024. That shot's always going to be there. So she's put her name in history for that. So I'll give her a B. I think there's still room to grow. Defense is still a big thing. Better defender than she was previously, but still room to grow. There was still areas and still moments in time where Courtney Williams was not afraid to go at her. And she won that matchup up until I think game 4 and 5, when, as you mentioned, Courtney Williams was just absolutely gassed. We took to the poll. We asked our followers on Instagram if Sabrina had proved that she was the best point guard in the WNBA after this season. 78% of our audience said no. We also asked them if they thought that she was the best guard in the WNBA after this season. And 67% of the audience said no. So still not the best point guard, still not the best guard, but growth nonetheless for Sabrina Ionescu in 2024.
For sure. No, I mean, look, if she had played even just a little bit better in games 4 and 5, she would have won Finals MVP for that shot. If she even just played,
100%.
if she was just solid in games 4 and 5, she could have won Finals MVP, because that shot, people thought she'd still win it just because off the strength of that shot, because it was legit kind of like conversation and argument, like who gets it. I right away, like, especially, I kept saying to people, let's watch game 5. Let's see who does what in game 5. It was more obvious on Minnesota's side that it would go to Fee. New York was kind of like, you didn't really know. Stewie, Jonquel, or Sabrina, and you didn't really know.
And I don't think anyone would have been mad if either of the three won the award, because they all had their moments over the course of the series, I think.
Yeah, I just feel like those last 2 games, I would have been mad if Sabrina won it. Like Stewie, I was like, it's between Stewie or Jonquel. But if Sabrina won it based on those last 2, again, with Jonquel playing the way she did, like it's like you can't really justify that if you have someone else who's been better and more consistent and plays better in that last game. Even though it's about the whole series, I do still feel like naturally you have to consider recency bias with the most recent game, and then combine that with the rest of the series. The last quick thing I'll say about Sabrina, because you gave her a B, and I feel like the league gave her a B by putting her on second team. I think the big question now going into next season for Sabrina, I hate to make it personal and specific, and I hate to bring it up, but I couldn't help, as I'm working on my notes and looking at stuff, I couldn't help but think, I think the next milestone for Sabrina now, I think it's gotten personal. I think she has to prove she's better than Caitlin Clark. I think that's the big question now. I think that's the big question now. You just gave her the lead, put her on second team, and frankly, Caitlin scored more points than Sabrina this season. She had more assists. She had more steals. There's a reason why.
I'm glad you brought that up.
There are several reasons why Caitlin got first team over her, and now that's her next hump, because Caitlin's coming into year 2, gunslinging. She's gonna be very comfortable, and now. Again, I hate to make it personal. I know it's kind of like her mentee. I know she's got love for Caitlin. But that girl's coming for your spot now.
No.
You have it already. Remember, you come for your spot.
Look, in the words of the great Martin Payne. No, don't say that. I don't think. Okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Right. I don't look at the first team all WNBA and say Caitlin was on first team over Sabrina. I think Alyssa Thomas being on first team over Sabrina should be the issue. Caitlin certainly deserved the right to be on first team with the way that she played this season, all the records that she broke. Great season from Caitlin Clark. I don't think Caitlin is over Sabrina. I think Alyssa Thomas being over Sabrina is the issue. But if we're talking specifically Sabrina and Caitlin,
teams, that's fair.
What I'll say is, and it's a really weak argument to make. I know it's a weak argument to make, but it's an argument that I've been making about Caitlin all the time for everyone that compares Caitlin stats to DT stats, to Kelsey Plum stats, and all the guards who were on the Olympic team. Caitlin Clark is the lead guard and the number 1 option on the Indiana Fever. Like, everything goes through Caitlin. So for me, Caitlin scoring more points, having more assists, being more impactful offensively on a young Indiana Fever team than a player like Sabrina, who is the second, sometimes third best player on a New York Liberty team with a multi-time MVP in Breanna Stewart, an MVP in her own right in Jonquel Jones. Like, that makes sense that she's not leading that team in points and all that stuff. Like, that's just my take on it. It's a very weak argument. Like, it's very weak. I acknowledge it, but you might be right. the masses will look at this and say that Caitlin's better. And so you might be right. Sabrina might need to go out there and just prove that she's better. And I think she will.
Well, I'm saying that Caitlin's better. Forget
Oh,
the math. This is you and me, and whoever's on here watching. Feel free to let us know what you guys think. I'm telling you that Caitlin is better based on you giving her a B, based on us both saying that she reverted and showed some of her true colors, and based on what I know Caitlin does really well, that Sabrina does not do, which is push the basketball. I keep trying to tell you and everybody, Caitlin's best quality is pace, pushing. Yeah. You watch her dribble the ball up. She literally moves like she's a track star. She is a pace and space player, and that's everything. That's why Indiana got good. That's why they got dangerous. Like,
yeah,
they realize they need to play up to her pace. Sabrina ain't got no kind of pace to her play. Like, she tries to play with pace, but she doesn't move the way Caitlin does.
She does not. Yeah.
Might be a better shooter now. She is a better passer now. They both have some of the same things to work on, as far as the same things I said: extending the dribble, getting by people, finishing at the rim clean. I think the more Caitlin got more and more comfortable and got better and better with that. I think she's still got to add some mid-range and some stuff in between. But her ability to break people off and get to the basket is already better than Sabrina's right now, today.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you that Caitlin is better, and Sabrina she doesn't need to. Her team is better. You make a good point. If Sabrina keeps winning, or if she's in the finals, like, who cares? It's it's not a one-on-one game, of course. I'm not trying to make it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying soon. It's not just me. I'm saying this is going to become a larger conversation, and people have compared them already and stuff, but and Caitlin does have to prove she's a winner. That's exactly what I mean. Like, if Sabrina is going to be on the winning side and Caitlin's just like getting great stats and playing, like, we can always compare individuals and stuff, but like, there's no need if Sabrina is going to be, winning and being that kind of player. It's like, there's no need to compare. But if you're going to individually, it's tough for some Sabrina fans out there, because Caitlin got the jump on her. She did. As great as Sabrina was, this was her best year. Yeah. Caitlin got the jump on her. Just eye test wise, she got the jump on her now.
That's fair. And now I'm that much more excited to get to top 10 to get to the show. That much more excited. All right. A couple weeks ago, I talked about the importance of the Breanna Stewart-Napheesa Collier matchup in this finals. Let's toss to that and react. If Napheesa Collier continues this, if she continues to be a 25-10 player through the course of this finals, if she wins this matchup against Stewie, leads this team to a championship, a team that 2 years ago had a losing record, and a team last year had a losing record and still stuck into the playoffs. Thinking about all of that and thinking about the player that is Napheesa Collier now, if Napheesa Collier gets it done, Napheesa Collier, I think, 100% will have jumped over Stewie in that conversation.
Okay.
And I think you have to have a conversation about whether or not she's at least on the same playing field as Asia. So, Martin, you just gave a little bit of a peek into what we might be looking to expect in your top 10. I'm going to do the same right now. I'm telling you definitively, without a shadow of a doubt, spoiler alert, Napheesa Collier is the second best player in basketball. I don't care. I don't care. Look, shout outs. Look, she's the champ. Got it. Championships matter. 100%. Shout out Breanna Stewart. Breanna Stewart's defense, I think, is the story for her, because offensively, I hate to steal a word from Women's Who's Masterclass on Instagram, but she was repulsive, I think, offensively. Let me take it back. She was great in game 3. In the second half of game 3,
second half of game 3.
That second half of game 3 was nuts, bro. I don't think I've seen a better 20 minutes of basketball than she was everywhere. She's everywhere. She's all over the place. She's all over the place. It was great. And I texted you this, Sabrina's shot, as great as it was, just like Kyrie's shot against Golden State, as great as that was, Kyrie's shot doesn't happen without LeBron's block. Literally the defensive possession before. And as great as that shot was for Sabrina, that shot doesn't happen. Sabrina's not in that moment without the masterclass that Breanna Stewart gave us in the second half of game 3. I want to be crystal clear on that. Before I go any further, I want to be crystal clear on that. With that being said, though, and I said this to you, Martin, and I meant it 100%, and I think because of who I am and I'm a pretty jovial guy. I like to crack jokes. Sometimes I don't think you take me serious. I think other people don't take me serious. I mean this wholeheartedly. Breanna Stewart needs to write a thank you card to Niara Sabally, because Niara Sabally, for all intents and purposes, saved Breanna Stewart's legacy, as far as I'm concerned. Napheesa Collier consistently in this series, except for 20 minutes in game 3, from bell to bell, if you will, outplayed and outclassed Breanna Stewart, in my opinion, on both sides of the ball. They had their moments, right, when Stewie got the better of Fee. I'm not denying that. But overall, Fee was better. Fee was better offensively. Fee was better defensively, individually. I think Breanna Stewart's defense was more impactful because it set the tone for the team defense in New York. But individually, Fee's defense was better. Individually, Fee torched. I don't want to use the word torch, but like she caused more problems for New York's defense as an offensive player than Stewie did for Minnesota. And for all of those reasons, in 15 minutes, whenever we get to it, I'm going to tell you that Napheesa Collier is the second best player in the WNBA. And it's not just this. Obviously, it's the lead up to this, right? It's the being the defensive player of the year. It's what she did just throughout the course of the postseason. The most points per game average entering a finals by a defensive player of the year. I didn't check the stat, but I'm going to go on a limb to say she averaged the most points per game throughout the entire postseason for defensive player of the year. She set the record for most points scored in a single postseason. Napheesa Collier gave us a masterclass from the beginning of this postseason until the very end in game 5. Again, I know she was gassed in game 5, as everyone was, but there was not a moment in time. And I think this is a big question for you. So this is the part I want to get your thoughts on. A big question for you entering this series, specifically as it relates to Fee, was despite her having a high motor, would she be able to, when Minnesota really needed a shot, when they really needed a bucket, would she be able to do it? And I know we saw Courtney Williams do it a lot, but I think she answered that question. I think she answered the bell. When they really needed a shot.
In game 5, whenever she was gassed, but she was the only one who didn't look gassed. She didn't look gassed.
The only one who didn't look gassed.
The only one getting layups, bro.
Layups.
And I mean slipping and rolling for a layup and face up one-on-one, get around you layup. Like she can't not get layups.
She was giving and the last thing I'll say before I give it over to you, as much as Jonquel Jones was giving Minnesota's defense fits on offense, Napheesa Collier was giving Jonquel Jones fits when she had the ball in her hand. I don't think I've ever seen Jonquel look that lost and struggle that much defensively. Napheesa Collier took it to everybody in this game. And so, I think Fee was more impressive. I think Fee was the better player this series. I think Fee won this matchup. And I think Napheesa Collier cemented herself as the second best player in the WNBA. And I'm going to say it again in a couple minutes when we get to that. But spoiler alert, she's number 2 on my list.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I almost put I told you the top 3. We know who our top 3 were going to be. We know who the top 3 players in the league are. 2 and 3 are kind of up for debate right now, but sure. We know who one is, and we know the top 3, depending on the order. But I'm with you, man. I'm with you on my answer is Fee for this. And I almost put Stewie down at number 2 because I was thinking about, she did win. She's the champion. She did come up, she's still like she had, God, Stewie really had some bad moments, game 1, the free throws, the layup at the end. But
again, in game 5, those free throws.
Yeah, but then she made the free throws at the end of regulation. She came back and made those. So I feel like she kept coming back and responding and doing the things, little things she needed to do to stay aggressive and, contribute to winning. But as far as production and consistency, even through the whole playoffs, Napheesa had one of the best playoff runs we've ever seen individually, stat-wise. And then, her versus Stewie, I'm with you, man. I agree with you. I think what Napheesa did throughout the playoffs and even in the finals, she may not have had, I don't even know which game we could pinpoint as her best game in the finals. I don't know if she had a signature.
She was very even keeled.
She was just very even keeled.
Yeah.
And in moments she was unstoppable. We both allude to that second half of game 3. That was the most unstoppable I've ever seen Stewie. I think that's the best I've ever seen her at all, just playing basketball. But that was really the only stretch we saw like that. And I mean, if I just bottled up that stretch of Stewie, and that's kind of what went to my mind when I was doing my top 10 list, I'm like, man, the best version of Stewie in that finals, I'm taking her over the best version of Fee.
Yeah.
However, Fee was just better more often and more consistent. And even to your point about what you said about Caitlin and Sabrina, Fee doesn't have as much to lean on offensively. You know, the offense is very balanced. They're shot distribution, they're all execution, right? Like they really share the wealth. But Nafisa is their best player, and when they need something, they look for her. And it's always her responsibility to be that. And on Stewie's side, Sabrina can step up and be the best. Sometimes Jonquel can step up and be the best. Not to say Minnesota doesn't have players who could step up and be the best in moments. We saw Courtney Williams do it. Kayla McBride had that ability to do it. But I just think Nafisa had a little bit more on her shoulders. We mentioned before how like she didn't have a super team. No one accuses Minnesota of being a super team. And still Minnesota could have won that series just as easily as New York. And Nafisa really showed people how special she is, bro. I kept bringing it up on the show here when we talk about her, but just her simplicity, her skill set, and her IQ, just her ability to do everything. Man, it was fully on display. She's 4 years younger than Stewie, and I just think she just had her coming out party to show people just how good she is. She's just as good. She's on the level, of Asia, as you said in the clip, like we would see based on these two players, who's kind of on that top tier, maybe alongside Asia or right under Asia or whatever. And that was such a great display and such a great battle to see, like, who kind of owns that second best player in the league. And I think you were right about that. Even though Stewie's team won individual performance wise, I think Fee was more impressive. I think she had a chance to show more of, not even more, because like they both do so many things well. They were both really impressive and different moments on both ends of the floor, right? But I think Fee had more moments, and I think she had a chance to show people more of a sense of like how good she is. Brianna's been in the league longer. She's been an MVP. I think people understand that Brianna Stewart, like she's Diana Taurasi, she's Sue Bird, like Brianna Stewart's, her name is in those names where it's like, you may have heard of her greatness before. Fee, this is the new hotness, right? I think she's earned that.
The cement's not dry for it's not dry for Stewie, but it's certainly not dry for Fee. And I think in a couple years she's gonna have a long resume like Stewie and like Asia and like some of these other unicorns that we show love to. We asked our audience, them who was more impressive, Stewie or Fee. 90% of the audience said Nafisa Collier. We asked who was the second best player in the WNBA. 88% of them said Nafisa Collier. So our audience agrees, bro. Nafisa was better, and she's made herself the second best player in the league. Real quick before we get into top 10, this is a question I always like to ask, just because I think it's interesting. But I think with all that's happening in the WNBA over the next couple months, I think this can really get spicy. So generally, we always expect in sports that the champion is more likely to make it back to the WNBA or to the finals or to the championship series or the championship game, whatever, than the runner-up. Do you agree with that? Would you say that New York is more likely to make it back to the finals next year than Minnesota?
I had predicted that we were going to get the Warriors Cavs dynamic with Liberty Aces. Remember, I said, I'm pretty sure these are going to be the two best teams for the next 5 years, and they're going to end up facing each other in the finals. Unfortunately, we don't have a East-West conference ranking system, which drives me nuts.
It's coming back.
So it's coming. So, the matchups hash out where we can get New York and Vegas in the semifinals. But Minnesota, like, just like we were saying with Fee, like Minnesota is right. I told you the semifinals, the top 4 teams, I think Connecticut's got work to do. They've got to retain their coach first and foremost. Like Connecticut,
that's got to be a big issue for them. Yeah.
They're going to have an important turnaround going into next season, but they're, they're always going to be in the mix. Their culture, Thomas, they're going to be there. But we know who the top 3 or 4, players are and teams are. We know who the top teams are. Minnesota's there now.
Yeah.
So who's more likely? that's like asking me who was going to win the finals this year. I just think I don't know. It's up in the air, bro. But I will say, because we do look at like the losing team and teams and how teams are going to look to improve. Minnesota has to. I think Minnesota has to improve a lot more to get back to the finals next year, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying a full overhaul, but like,
right,
I think they need to invest in a bench. I think they need to invest in a proper point guard.
Sure.
And maybe another wing player or another wing player besides Bridget Carlton. If they bring everybody back and everybody's better, that's great. Maybe they put more use to their young players, Alyssa Peely, Diamond Miller. They didn't use them at all. So hopefully they can progress and develop, maybe add to their depth some next season. But whoever it is, I think they need more range, maybe a little more youth, maybe a little more shooting. They shot their worst 3-point percentage of the season in the last game of the season in game 5. And of course, throughout the season, they were one of the top 3-point shooting team. They were the top 3-point shooting team as far as percentage during the season. That was more about their efficiency, execution. Kayla McBride being on that heater throughout the season. I wouldn't really call them like a great 3-point shooting team. And I think it showed as we got into the finals and like tighter games. That's not necessarily their identity. So I think I think Minnesota still has work to do with their roster. I think they'll be back, but I think the Liberty, their big three, Sab, Stewie, Jonquel, if they're there, Phoebich isn't going anywhere. She's a revelation for them. If I had to answer, I'd say the Liberty have a better chance because they've been here. They've been here the last 2 years now. Minnesota's going to come back hungry, just like New York was hungry this year. So I do see that the way they lost, not just the fact they lost, but the way they lost, they're going to be highly motivated top to bottom. I just think their roster is going to need some tweaks. So until I see that, I'm probably going to have a little more confidence in the Liberty getting back to the finals next year.
I would 100% agree with you, if not for the expansion draft on December 5th.
Ooh, it's going to shake things up.
If the WNBA was not expanding this year, I'd be lockstep with you. Here's my thing, and this is something that I noticed throughout the course of the series. I don't think I actually mentioned it to you, but it's probably my biggest takeaway from the series. The New York Liberty won this series, yes. But the New York Liberty won this series more because of the extras than the main stars.
Agreed.
Like the supporting actresses, if you will.
Agreed.
In this ensemble is the reason why they won. Phoebich in game 1. Lainey Hamilton in game 2. Sabally,
Kayla
Thornton in game 5. Sabally in game 4 and 5, right?
Yeah.
With the expansion draft being around the corner, they're only keeping 6 of these players. They're going to keep Stewie. They're going to keep Sabrina. They're going to keep Jonquel. That's 3 of them right there. 3 players are there.
Phoebich.
You got to keep Phoebich. She was great. She's great. She's a lock, right? So there's 4. Do you keep Sloot? Maybe. Yeah. Maybe not. Might want to. Veteran presence. We'll see, right? Did Niar Sabally do enough in this final series to warrant being protected from the expansion draft? I think so. I just told you she saved Stewie's legacy. So I think so. But does New York think so? Right? Is Betnaja Laney going to be on this team next year as a protected player? She better be. Yeah. I think so. I think she's still the 4th best player on the team.
I want to see what she.
That's a good point as well. So I say all that to say the bench, the depth of the New York Liberty is the reason why they won this series. Because when their starters were struggling, there was someone that they could point to in every single game that stepped up and picked up some of that slack. Right? This expansion draft is going to put that depth in jeopardy. And so while I'm not 100% sure on like what the aftermath of the expansion draft is, as far as like what happens if players that you don't protect aren't picked up, if you can just bring it back onto the roster, I imagine that's the case, but I'm not sure. But if some of these key bench pieces aren't protected and they end up going to Golden State, if this bench isn't, as deep as it is this year, next year, I don't know if they can make it back because they relied heavily on their bench. And you think about the depth, they've got one of the deepest benches in the league. One of the most, you can put anyone, you can plug anyone in with that starting unit, that core 3, and it works efficiently. Phoebich. Laney's not Phoebich obviously is a starter now, not a bench player. Laney as well. But like Niara Sabali, you could put her in there with the starting five. She'd do just fine. With that core three, she'd do just fine. Kayla Thornton, you can put her out there, right? You also got to think about there's some other players as well. Some of those young players, they got 2 rookies, Marquisha Davis, Jalen Sherrod, 2 rookies, just like Minnesota. Young players who didn't get a lot of run. Did you see enough from them this season where you want to bring them back? And if not, are you sure that they're going to be there on the other side of it to come back and be able to improve and step up into what might be some expanded roles? There's a lot of questions for New York to answer, I think, as it relates to the depth. And for that reason, I think it's more likely that Minnesota makes it back, because I don't think there's a question about who needs to come back in Minnesota. I think it's a straightforward answer. I think the 6 players that you would expect to be protected from the draft in Minnesota are going to be protected from the draft, and then they're going to do what they need to do to build around those 6. I think this final series, as great as it was and as great as it is to win, the dangerous thing about this championship for it is there are players that now you have to seriously think if they're worth protecting. And if they're not worth protecting, are you going to be able to guarantee that on the other side of the expansion draft on December 5th, they'll be there waiting for you to come back? I think that's dangerous. And so for that reason, right now, I'd say it's more likely that Minnesota makes it back than New York.
I think that's fair. I just think when you look at what New York has been able to do in terms of tweaking their roster, they have shown the ability to get a Maureen Johannes, a Leonie Fibich, a Niara Sabali. Like they're finding these players. So when you say 6 players, give me the top 6 on the Liberty. That's fine. I mean, you can figure out the rest.
Yeah.
Figure out the rest. Like because they've been figuring it out. They've been finding great reserves each year. Like that management team, man, I raved about it when they made the moves for Jonquel and Stewie and Slew. I'm like, man, the Liberty, they're not playing around. They're gonna get a championship. Like they tweaked that roster again this year. They did. Johannes, who I thought was their most dynamic player. Probably won't do it without her. Need her, especially with Courtney Vandersloot being an older, short guard who can't guard people. Came back with Leonie Fibich. Like they find players.
They do.
They're showing us that they find players, and the expansion draft is going to shake things up as far as rosters. But again, you talk about top 6, the top teams are going to be fine. They're going to be just as good.
Sure. That's a good point. All right, man. It's that time. It's time to do some top 10. I told you at the top of the night I was going to ruffle some feathers, but before we do that, let's talk about to the last time I ruffled some feathers on top 10.
You better have the person who I just now put at 10, who I can now put at 10. Because she's a top 10. You better have if Jonquel's not in there, it better be for this person. It might be someone else I'm thinking you might have in there too, though. All right, sorry. Who do you have at 7?
I have Angel Reese at 7.
Yo, you came you came crazy tonight. I'm not gonna say crazy. I don't think it's crazy. But Sabrina at 6 and Angel Reese at 7. Top 10 players right now.
Spicy.
I like it spicy, man. I like it spicy. So, as you mentioned, the top 3 players are the same. The order might be different. I've already explained who my second best player is, so I'll just run through mine. Asia, Fee, Stewie. That's my top 3. Is that yours?
That's my top. Yeah, that's my top 3. By the way, if you're watching live, you can give us your top 10 in the comments.
Yep.
If you're watching on the playback, do the same. Comment on the video. Leave us your top 10. Let us know your thoughts on our top 10.
Do it.
The top 3 should be what we just said. If you have Stewie over Fee, whatever. But we know the top 3 right now. Those should be locked.
Who's your 4?
Marcus. We talked about this player, one of our top 10s. She didn't show up, and I was questioning both of us a little bit.
Okay.
I based on the playoff, like I'm some of this is like where we are now based on this past season, based on performances and stuff.
Absolutely.
Some of that, it has to be, we're rethinking our top 10 based on what we saw this season.
Absolutely.
I also can't help but think, and me as an eye test guy, I also can't help but think about just the nature of, like, if we're talking the 10 best players, I'm thinking of, if I'm putting this player here, that means they're not even just better. Like, I could make an argument for better over, how I rank them, but it's also like based on would you be if I drop you onto a team as the number one option, as the best player? You know,
Okay.
like is that you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
will you have that? Do you have that kind of
Sure.
individual impact as like where I rank you? Are you that high or that, you know, are you there as far as like being the best player on any given team? Okay.
Okay. That's fair. I like that.
Alyssa Thomas is my number 4.
Oh, okay. She's not my 4. She's my 5.
Really?
She's my 5. She slid down for me. She did slide down one spot for me.
Who was that
With the way that we just watched her play basketball over the last, what was that, week and a half, 2 weeks?
No, you didn't.
Jonquel Jones is the 4th.
No, you didn't.
So let's just talk about the trajectory of Jonquel Jones on my top 10. If we remember, in my first top 10, Jonquel Jones was in my top 10. I think she was right outside the top 5 at that time. In the moment of that clip, that was right in the middle of Angel Reese's double streak, and Jonquel had fallen out of my top 5 or out of my top 10 completely. Jonquel Jones reminded me who she was in the finals. And I apologize, Jonquel. The odds of you saying this was slim, but I apologize to you for forgetting who you were. So yeah, Jonquel Jones is 4. I think she's deserved. I think she's earned it. I think she's earned it.
I love that. I had to consider Jonquel in the top 5. Yeah. I really did. I really thought about it. You know, we've already said like she may have earned top center in the league.
Yeah.
Man, that's wow. I love that. Like I love that for you. I love that for her. I am not against saying that Jonquel is a top 5 WNBA player right now. Yeah. I didn't put her in my top 5. Because I think for me, and going back to what I said about like being, you know, like a number 1 option, essentially, like being the best player, like, and I hate to say this, like it takes away from Jonquel. It's just the fact that, you know, she's playing with 2 other, you know, MVP caliber players.
Absolutely.
You know, I just that's the main thing I think that took away from Jonquel for me. As far as like being top 5, like a top 5 player outright. I have her in my top 10.
Yeah.
But she didn't crack my top 5.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So you have Jonquel 4, Alyssa Thomas at 5.
Alyssa Thomas is my 5. Yes.
That's a great top 5. And I actually think I need to move Jonquel on my list. That's a great top 5.
Yep.
Isn't it crazy how, because my top 5 almost ended up like this, but isn't it crazy how the you know top 3 to 5 whatever are forwards? Like, like I don't know if you were looking at the bottom half of your 10. It's like, damn, is it like and guards?
four forwards and a 5.
All the guards going in the second half. I'm like, dang, all bigs and forwards in the top 5. Man, that's cool, man. I'm proud of you. That's dope.
So I have Alyssa Thomas at my 5 spot. Who's in your 5 spot?
Caitlin Clark.
You know,
I had to do it. I Marcus
5, Martin 5.
Yeah, I put her in my top 5, bro. She's the first guard that I had to put. She's the first guard that came up. Now my number 6 is a guard too, who I struggled with a little, but I'm like. Again, I thought maybe Jonquel in the top 5. I was really thinking about it. But as far as impact, individual play, running the team, running the offense, being the focal point, and then her talent over, you know, the last half of the season, with her talent really showing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, part of it is going into next season. Like, I think Caitlin is, I said it before, I think she's coming into year 2.
Yeah.
Just overly confident and comfortable. And I think it's kind of crazy. But I think she earned that for me, man. I think that's where I'm at. Caitlin at 5.
I stayed true to what I said in that clip that I got a lot of heat on our Instagram. She's not that high for me. I will admit though, she got some consideration. It's
just the guards, man. I'm like, look at the top guards.
Yeah.
Would I take certain guards over her? Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe, you know, all context always matters. It depends on what I need, what I'm looking at, what kind of team I want, what kind of style I'm playing.
Yep.
But I can make an argument to take Caitlin over any guard. And I think based on her play, especially to finish the season, I think she was the best guard in the league.
That's valid, man. That's valid. So you have Asia Fee, Stewie, Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin. That's your
Indeed.
top 5. Okay.
Indeed.
I have Asia Fee, Stewie, Jonquel, and Alyssa Thomas in my top 5. I think this 6 through 10 is where things are going to start to get a little bit interesting.
Yeah,
Who's
and
your
I do think I need to make a quick. I do think I need to make a quick revision here.
Okay. While you do that, I'm going to share my 6.
Yeah.
My 6 is where the first guard popped up for me.
Okay.
As well, just as a spoiler, the next 4 spots for me are all guards.
All guards. Okay.
All guards for 6 through 9. At number 6, I probably gave her a tough grade earlier tonight, but Sabrina Ionescu is my 6.
Oh my goodness. No,
Sabrina's my 6.
Marcus.
Sabrina's my 6. Now let me explain. I want to be crystal clear. I do not think that if we saw Chelsea Gray healthy from the beginning of the season, that I would have Sabrina as the first guard in my top 10. I want to make that crystal clear.
Okay.
I do not think that Sabrina is the best point guard in the WNBA, and I don't think she's the best guard in the WNBA. But based on this season, I have to acknowledge that, in my opinion, obviously you think it was Caitlin, but in my opinion, I do not think we saw a better guard play basketball, despite her shortcomings in the playoffs, occasionally in the finals. I do not think we saw a better guard play basketball this season than Sabrina Ionescu.
You gave her a B. You gave her a B.
She's my highest graded guard.
No other guard played better than a B to you this season.
Well, Caitlin would get an A from me, but for different reasons.
Okay.
Caitlin would get an A for me because to have the most eyes on you as any number 1 pick ever in the league, to still show up and do what she did. Like LeBron. Like LeBron had the most eyes of any first round pick ever. He came in the league and took it, like on the chin, and it was nothing. Caitlin did the same thing. Caitlin gets an A for circumstance, 100%. But Sabrina, to me, I already thought Sabrina was better. Caitlin, again, to your point, I don't know if I'm ready to say that Caitlin's better right now.
Okay.
I think a year from now, not even a year from now, I think by the end of June next year, that might be it. I might feel differently. Once we get to a month and a half into the season, I might feel differently. But right now, I would still give Sabrina the edge because, of course, aside from all that, she is a champion. She did win. Yeah. And she answered a lot of questions about her play this season. So Sabrina's the first guard on my list. She's at 6. Who's your 6?
My 6 is Kahleah Copper. No question about it. No question about it.
No, 100%.
Some of this for me does come down, like I said, I'm an eye test, pure talent guy for the most part. Other dynamics come into play, sure, but especially when I get down here, I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to name the players who I think are the best, next best after that,
Yep.
Again, like I said, after Caitlin, like Kahleah Copper to me after Caitlin, obviously one of the top guards in the league. But if I'm picking a guard to say she's the top guard, it was Kahleah Copper. She started the season hotter than she finished the season.
Yeah. 37 and 38 to open up was nuts.
She put on this year, averaged over 20. By the way, not to backtrack, but I just found it interesting. Alyssa Thomas, who was in both of our top 5s here, she's probably the only player. I know she's the only one on my top 10, probably the same for you, that's outside of the top 30 in scoring.
Yeah.
Top 30. She was like 36th or something in scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of players that average more points than her. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell averaged more points than her. Angel Reese averaged more points than her. A lot of people average more points than Alyssa Thomas. But you watch her play, she's
and you know why she's top 5.
I just wanted to point that out. But
100%,
Kahleah Copper at 6, man. She's again, like if I had to pick between Caitlin, Kahleah, I'd probably go Kahleah for just stylistic reasons.
Sure.
I'm not saying definitively that Caitlin is like flat out better than Kahleah in that sense, in that same breath. But in terms of ranking talent, I'm gonna go Caitlin 5, Kahleah 6.
Okay. Who's your 7?
I just moved Jonquel Jones up to 7.
Gotcha.
I had her at 9, and I moved her up to 7.
I gotcha. Okay.
My 7 at 7.
As I said, the next couple picks here are all guards, and then I've got a shocker at the end. I have Arike.
Okay.
At 7.
Okay.
I know that we looked at A'ja Wilson this season. You and I both agree that A'ja Wilson's the best scorer in basketball. Arike, to me, is the second best scorer in basketball. It's really close between her and who I have next on my list, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Arike. Also, for what it's worth, Arike, if I'm not mistaken, she did in fact become the second player ever with triple-digit steals in a single season, joining Teresa Weatherspoon in that regard, the legendary Teresa Weatherspoon. Shout out Coach Spoon. The one thing for Arike is I think when we see Arike in Dallas and everyone's healthy, Satu's healthy, Arike is healthy, everyone's healthy, we see the best version of Arike. I don't think we saw the best of Arike this season because Satu was out for much of the season and she was dealing with injury but herself. But Arike at her best is a top 7 player to me. So I have her at 7.
Agreed. She's in my top 10. When I say agreed, I don't have her in my top 7, but she is in my top 10. That Arike was actually who I bumped down for. I had Arike at 7, and I had to move. I had to move Jonquel up. I had her at 9. Like, she's got to go up further.
So does that mean Arike's your 8?
No, I actually changed from one guard to another one because I think I know who your one of your next guards is. It's probably we might have the same, but I had one who I give you some flack about. But I had to bump her off because I had to make room for Jewel Lloyd. I put Jewel Lloyd at 8.
As did I.
That's what I thought.
As did I. Jewel Lloyd, you can't. She's bro.
She's top 10. She's top 10. You don't do a top 10 list without having.
No, you can't do a top 10 list without Jewel Lloyd. So this is where I think things are going to be interesting. This is where I think the views on the reels are going to start going up. Who do you have? Who do you have at 9?
So I moved Arike to 9. I have Arike at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Who do you have at 9?
I have Caitlin Clark at 9.
Okay.
So, I told you when we were playing the show that, and if you haven't seen it, there's a clip on the Instagram that the network posted that we're collabed on, where I said that there's about 6 to 8 players that I would say are definitively better than Caitlin Clark. But I can make an argument to put her ahead of one of those players. That one player that she's ahead of is not in my top 10. She's in your top 10 though. She's not in my top 10. So Caitlin Clark's my 8 or my 9. Sorry, Caitlin Clark I think is 9. I think despite how adamant I was at the beginning of the year about how Caitlin Clark would not show up and be the best thing going for the WNBA on the basketball court, I will never sit here and deny the talent that is Caitlin Clark on the basketball floor. And what she did post-Olympic break is why she's number 9. Because if she was the player that she was before Olympic break, she wouldn't be on my list at all. So it's simply the last month and a half or so of basketball is the reason why she's on my list at number 9. But Caitlin Clark, I think, has warranted a spot at worst. At best, I would say number 9. I don't think she goes any higher than that for me personally. So she's my 9. Who rounds out your top 10?
Sabrina.
Okay.
Sabrina rounds out my top 10, and I could have gone. I have a few names, below that were not just honorable mention, just a couple things we need to address very quickly about some players who deserve to be top 10, but who slipped as a result of different factors this season.
Sure.
But I think Sabrina deserves to be there. I think over any of the other names. I love to fight for Kelsey Plum because just talent wise, she is one of the best guards in the league.
Shout out KP, man.
You can't I'm sorry. She's top 15 for sure.
Absolutely.
Bro. I don't know if you know the stat and saw it for your beloved team. First time in WNBA history. Oh man, I should have clocked this. First time in WNBA history, a duo on the same team has scored, I think it was more than 500 points. Kelsey Plum and A'ja. I think the number was 500. It was something about the total number of points
Yeah.
And minimum, I think it was 500. It might have been 700. I'll find it and reference it. But
Gotcha.
Kelsey Plum is a special guard.
She is.
She deserves to be on somebody's top 10 list. But
Yeah.
Sabrina rounds out my 10.
So I told you that 6 through 9 were my guards.
Mm-hmm.
There are no more guards on my list, Martin. So I'm going to give you one crack at it. Do you want to guess who the 10th best player in the WNBA is according to yours truly?
I don't know if I have a proper guess here. I'm thinking maybe Dearica Hamby, but I don't think it's her.
No, Dearica Hamby is 12 on my list, actually. The 10th player on my list.
Is it Dewana Bonner?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
All right. Okay. I'm pretty stumped.
It's Angel Reese. Angel Reese. I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why it's Angel Reese. First of all, it's no secret I love Angel. Let's just start there. I'm a massive Angel Reese fan. But aside from that, I think I grew a greater appreciation for Angel Reese's game as a basketball player in the 2.5 to 3 week time span when my life on social media was trying to get people to understand that she's more than just an offensive rebounder on the basketball court.
Okay.
I think that's where my appreciation for Angel grew. And I know it's easy to say, oh, she's just a rebounder, or oh, she's just an offensive rebounder. She rebounds half her misses, all that stuff. None of that stuff based in any type of fact. But, and again, a lot of this has to do with going into next season. I do think similar to your position on Caitlin and mine as well. Like a lot of this does have to do with going into next season. Angel Reese to me is a top 10 player in the WNBA. This is a league historically that's been dominated by bigs. And Angel Reese is a big that 100% has work to do. I'm not going to tell you that she doesn't have work to do. I think that the underhanded, that lazy underhanded scoop layup nonsense got to stop. I don't want to see that ever again. I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't, right? I think she needs to have a little more polish with just her game down low. I think that's a large reason why she was blocked the most this season, I think, is because of just the lackadaisicalness that comes with the layups, right? But with all that in mind, she's still a good passer out of the post. She still has the ability to run the floor on this level, the same way that she did in LSU. She's still a great rebounder, obviously. The things about Angel Reese that we grew to love about her at LSU on an on-the-court standpoint and just strictly basketball, stripping away the personality and stuff, all those things are still there. I think what a lot of people didn't give Angel Reese is the grace to grow in those areas, because a lot of people were just so quick to find the little things to diminish her in favor of Caitlin. I think Angel Reese going into next season is a top 10 player for all the reasons I just mentioned. I think she's going to come out next season with a chip on her shoulder for a number of reasons, because people are doubting the fact that she's actually putting in the work because she's doing all this extra stuff. I think she's going to have a chip on her shoulder because of what happened with Coach Spoon. And I think she's going to come out here and she's going to prove that not only is she a lot better than what people think, but I think she's going to prove that she deserves to be a franchise player. And I think that she's going to prove that in the next 3 to 5 years, much like how I think Aaliyah Boston is on that trajectory, I think she's going to prove in the next, 3 to 5 years, she's going to be a consistent 25-10, 25-12, whatever player in the league. So Angel Reese is top 10, and she rounds out my top 10. And I'm going to stand on that square there. I'm going to stand on that. I'm good with it. I might be the only person in America that thinks that Angel Reese is the top 10 player other than Shaquille O'Neal. And I'm fine with that. I'm cool with it.
And her brother and LSU fans.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Man, that's bold. That is bold, brother. I love that. I love that too.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, that is bold. That is bold. But similar to what we saw from Caitlin, as far as like another historic rookie season, dominant even at moments. And you mix with what she did. I hear you on the next season and the potential and stuff. And while that may not carry that much weight for like where we are right now,
sure,
it speaks to what you just saw her do this season, and obviously speaks to how highly you think of her. That that is interesting. That is interesting, man. I would have gone Kelsey Plum. I think Kelsey Plum is better than Angel Reese right now. I think that I find it hard to overlook a Kelsey Plum for a rookie.
Fair.
But
That's fair.
Some other names I'll throw out there.
Yeah.
The two Grays. You mentioned Chelsea Gray, how her injury in the early part of the season really set her back. She's a name that could have easily been fighting to be on this top 10 list. I think she was on, if not one of our, if not both of our top 10s the first time we did it.
She was on the first one.
Maybe like
to start injured players. Yeah.
Oh, right. Because we had made the stipulation about injured players. The other Gray I'll mention who I would love to see maybe get some more top 10 looks. She's probably maybe comfortably top 20. Alicia Gray is really good. Alicia Gray is really good. And honestly, look no further than All-Star Weekend. Wasn't she All-Star?
She won everything.
Won the skills.
She won everything.
Look no further than that to see how good Alicia Gray really is at basketball.
She played great in the Liberty series as well. I mean, they got dog walked, but she played great in that series in those two games as well.
Yeah, she did. Speaking of Atlanta, Ryan Howard, who I also called out at the beginning of the season and didn't seem to hear me because she played better in the FIBA 3-on-3 than she did in the actual WNBA season when it matters. But Ryan Howard deserves to be on a top 10 players list. I don't know what's going on or what we're waiting for or who's not doing what around her, but please.
Spoon's going to unlock her next season.
Somebody get Ryan Howard on the right track before I step in and do what I need to do, because I don't understand what's going on with a player of that talent caliber not being definitively a top 10 player. She has top 10 talent. Do it better. I mean, maybe Teaspoon in Atlanta. Maybe
Spoon. They're gonna call Spoon down there. Get it right.
I mentioned Kelsey Plum.
Yep.
And Satu is another name. Obviously, her injury to start the season kept her off our initial top 10, but Satu last year was a top 10 player.
Oh, 100%.
We look forward to seeing her get back to full form. When she came back, she kind of got right to it, back to where she was last year. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see how this top 10 list shakes out between some of these players who, could take a step up, could ascend, could get better, make another leap, or players that were hurt this year who kind of had setbacks, in the early part of the season. So there's a lot more talent out there to make it onto the top 10 next time we do this.
One player that I honestly am surprised she was not in my top 10, but I get it. Another one as well that you didn't mention is Jackie Young.
Well, oh, sorry.
Jackie Young
had her name down as someone who slipped. She slipped.
Jackie Young was in both of our top 10s at the beginning of the season as well.
Because she was a top 10 player and one of the top guards in the league.
And she still is. This was just a down year for her. I don't know what was going on with Jay.
I know she was like banged up too. I don't know if
she was. She was banged up. I think she came into the season like ill or something. She had a couple lingering.
She had some challenges this year.
She did.
It was just not herself. I brought up last year. I remember we had Mark Schindler on the show. We were talking about the finals after one of the games last year. And I brought up the notion of Jackie Young settling for threes too much. And I love that she's enhanced her outside shooting. I love that she can shoot the ball, but she's too strong and quick to be relying on the 3-point shot the way I saw her doing a year ago. And again, it looked a lot better and it was great. And she made more than she missed. She seemed to make more than she missed. So it was fine. But at certain points, I saw her just like, man, Jackie, is that the shot? Like, you should be the one going. Let Kelsey take the three. Kelsey can beat people off the dribble too. Both of you guys should be taking people off the bounce anytime you want. And this year, I feel like she doubled down on it because, again, I think physically she just wasn't right, especially in the playoffs, man. Like, she was not.
She had one good game in the playoffs. She played well in game 3 against the Liberty that one game that we won that series. She had a good game that game. But other than that, she was, you're right. Jackie was off this year, but she'll be back.
Yeah, just wasn't moving well, wasn't like super confident, wasn't like the guard that got them over the hump last year. And between her not being herself and Chelsea Gray having to work her way back from injury most of the season, that really set the Aces back. And I had said to you, I said they won't win unless Jackie Young can kick up. Yeah, she wasn't able to. So yeah, Jackie Young was on my list of honorable mention, slipped off the list as well.
What a great night. Very long show tonight. We do apologize about that, but we had a lot to talk about. We appreciate all you guys that stuck with us. Thank you guys all for tapping in with us throughout the course of the show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at @ProtectOurQueens_. Follow us on Twitter at @POQueens_ as well to stay tapped in with us. We always want you guys to join the conversation, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's in the comments, whether it's right here on the show live or on the playback. So make sure you guys are joining the conversation because we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to have an open dialogue between us, but also from us to you guys as well. So for my guy, Martin Sories of Basketball Society, this is Marcus of the Protect Our Queens podcast signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy yourselves some women's basketball.